After your design is complete and it's on your square, you're going to need to pick out a piece of metal. You're going to come up to the front, show me your design and which side you want your metal on. It could be this way, or you could use the back. And the back will have a frame. Now these will either be silver or copper, and the back will have the reverse with a small frame. You decide what side's the front. The side that will be the front will get the paper on top of it. Once I've checked that your design will work on the metal, I'll help you tape it down. And then on the back, as softly as you can without pushing down the metal, write your name on the back. If I push down, then there's going to be a dent on the other side that has my name backwards on it, and I don't want that. When your name is written, you're going to walk over and grab a ballpoint pen. These little cheap pens don't even have to work. It's really just the shape of the top of the pen that we want to use. So I'm going to trace all of my pencil lines straight on the table. I'm pushing down, and there may be some bumps you can feel with your pen, so go slow. If your pen doesn't work, like mine doesn't work, and you're not sure where you are, you can kind of lift your paper up and peek to see. I'm also feeling with my finger, I can kind of feel which lines I've traced. My pen suddenly started working again, but it really doesn't matter if it works or not. Okay, now I'm just checking that I can see all of my lines clearly. These are a little lighter than the other ones, but I can see it clearly enough that I will be able to trace it again without using my paper. I'm going to return the pen to the box and pick up two things. This little wooden tool that we're going to use to push the metal deeper, and this piece of felt. The reason we're using fabric underneath of it is so that the metal will push down deeper. If you've ever used a piece of paper on carpet before, you notice that it will punch a hole in your paper because the paper sinks into the cushion. It's not good for paper, but for metal, where we want the metal to sink down, the cushion is very helpful. So I'm just retracing all the lines I just made one more time. I'm going slower this time because as the metal bends and expands out, it can make my hand a little wobbly. If there are parts where your tool kind of gets stuck, you just need to lift it up and gently kind of push it down on either side. Don't push too hard, or your metal might split and create a hole. So I'm noticing I'm having a hard time pushing up here. I'm just going to stop, kind of rotate, and trace. My line is a little wobbly, but it's okay. I'm feeling all of my lines to make sure this whole section is deep enough, and I will move on and trace a different section. So I made a couple mistakes while I was tracing. I'm not going to get upset about it. My design still looks nice. I did notice when I was tracing I accidentally made an extra line right here. If that happens to you, or let's say your metal starts to bend a little bit, because if you're not gentle and you're not holding it carefully, your metal can kind of crinkle up. Try to keep it flat, and I'm using the table to kind of press it back down just a little bit. I'm not squishing it, I'm just smoothing it. And this section right here that's got a little scrape in it, I can use the back of my thumb, where my thumbnail is, to kind of rub it out. Sometimes it works, It didn't work on mine. It's okay, it's not a big deal. Once you've deepened your lines, we're going to take off our design paper. Be very careful when you peel it. I would hold right on the edge here and gently drag it to one side. If you have trouble or it's sticking too much, you can ask me for help, or a neighbor that you saw didn't have any trouble. This metal bends very easily, so in order to keep it flat, you have to be careful when you're peeling the tape off. We don't need this anymore. You can take it home if you really like it, or you can throw it away. Now that our design is clearly on our metal, we're going to start doing the repousse part of the lesson, where we're going to bubble out the design. We're going to make it stand up, because right now, even though we can see the lines and I can use my fingers and I can feel it, the metal's not really puffing out too much. So in order to make this sections in between pop out, I need to color it on the back. I can't take my tool and pull the metal up, but I can push it down. So I'm going to work on the opposite side. When you're doing step 2, make sure you can see your name. If your name is on there, you know that's the back. I'm going to treat this like a coloring page. I do not want to press down on top of my lines. They're already pushed in. I need to leave them alone. I'm going in between the lines, just like I would a coloring page where I need to stay in the lines, and I'm coloring them in. For smaller sections or shapes, I can use the thin side. It will create almost like a lined texture. And when I go on to the next section, I'm going to skip the line and go in between again. I'm not pushing really hard. I don't need to push that hard because of the cushion underneath of here. I'm just using like a light, medium pressure. Start light. You can always push a little bit harder. If you start too hard and you notice it's hard to move your tool around, you're probably pushing too much, and you just need to push a little less. Since I'm using the pointy, thin side of my tool, I'm trying to make sure I'm coloring in the same direction back and forth so it doesn't end up looking like I scribbled on the metal. It's also a lot more difficult crossing lines over in the metal, like right down here where I have to kind of curve it. It's a little bit harder to go back and forth, so I'm pressing down and lifting up, pressing down and lifting up like I'm petting a cat. Looking at the front now, I can see that some of my designs have been pushed up a little bit more. I can really feel it. If you don't like the lined textures or you want some smoother textures, if the space is big enough, you can use the round side. And when I rub into it, it will kind of create a smoother bubble. You can do this on top of a texture you don't like. It'll kind of erase it a little bit. Just again, be careful how much you're pressing and rubbing in one area, because you could create holes in your metal. So you can see this is very smooth now. It just depends on the type of texture you want. I don't think I can really use the round side in here. I don't think it will fit. Yeah, it's too big. So I need to use the thin tip again. And then my wider big sections, I can use the flat side of the tool to make it pop out a little bit. Also, it's easier to color into this line right here than trying to push outwards. And I can also use the round side if I want it to really pop out more This will help it bubble out higher. Every time I come to a line, I'm just skipping it and going on the other side. Alright, I believe I have bubbled out all the sections of my metal. It's really popping out now on the sides. But I'm noticing now the line designs I made are not really deep anymore. I pushed out a lot. So my third step after I finish bubbling out the back, step 3 is to retrace one last time all of my lines. So my circle, this will be the hardest retrace because the metal is bubbled up and it has texture. Your lines may get a little wiggly and stuck. Just go slow, take your time. Anytime it gets a little too stuck, like it just happened with me, I lifted it up and I'm kind of bending it at an angle so I can press the metal down easier. And you can also keep rotating your metal so it's easier to trace. I'm feeling with my finger so I can tell the lines have deepened again. I'm not pushing too hard. I'm checking on the back and the front, feeling with my fingers. My lines feel all deep. Looks good. I'm going to put this in my portfolio, return my cushion and stylus to the front, and we're ready to patina next week.